Welcome to the Bronx African American History Project. My name is Steven Payne, librarian and archivist of the Bronx County Historical Society, and I'm here with Alice McKenzie, who grew up at the Coops, or the United Workers Cooperative Colony, located at 2700 Bronx Park East. And we begin these oral history interviews by asking, Alice, why don't you tell us a little bit about your family and how they ended up in the Bronx, as far as you know anyway.
We talked earlier, and you asked if my father came from Harlem, and I think he did.
Okay.
I don't recall that. And I forgot your question.
Sure. Just whatever you might know about how your family ended up in the Bronx.
I don't know. That I really don't know.
Sure.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. And what about your father or mother's background, what you might know of their families, where they might have come from, anything you might know along those lines?
Okay. My mother was white. Her family was from Poland, and they immigrated here, and they were Jewish. And I don't think that they were observant Jews, but they were Jewish.
Sure.
And they had no idea they had no idea of who my mother's man was. They would have had a heart attack right there and then.
Yeah.
But in any case, my father was Black from Guyana, and he one day knocked on her door. They lived in New Jersey, and my mother had a brother and a sister. And the father came to the door, her father came to the door, and my father said, "I've come here to pick up my wife." And I don't know whether she left or not.
Yeah.
That day, I have no idea. I wonder if they let him in the house. Oh God, but they were shocked.
Yeah.
Absolutely shocked.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that she was married at that point, but I guess so. And the family disowned her, wanted nothing to do with her, which is too bad, but that's the way it is.
Yeah. Did she see them at all after that point, or?
Her mother, excuse me, her mother used to come to the Coops.
Okay.
And visit.
I see. So I guess your mother's family eventually just had to accept it, whether they liked it or not. And so you saw them.
Oh no, that's not really true.
Okay.
No, her mother and father. Well, her mother came to visit us a couple of times. I never met my grandfather.
Oh.
It's even weird saying grandfather.
Yeah.
That's a term I never use.
Sure.
And he had a reputation of being not a very nice guy.
Yeah.
My mother in the late 1980s told me that all of her nieces, nephews, and my first cousins live in Brooklyn. And she tried to get, she was seeing them, my mother. And she said, why don't you meet them? And I said, I have no interest in meeting them.
Yeah.
And eventually, some years after, I said, all right, I'll go check them out. So they lived in Brooklyn in a brownstone. It was weird.
I bet. I bet.
they were pretty much all the same age, around the same age.
Yeah.
And one of my cousins, Isabel, had a daughter, Molly. And actually, my other cousin, Susan, had a son. I don't think he was there. Molly was little at the time, and I absolutely love Molly.
Mm.
And she's had a hard time with her pregnancies, but she finally got a baby,
Oh,
and
wow.
she's very, very happy. And these people have Black friends.
Yeah.
It's a different generation,
Yeah.
and they have white friends who married an Afro-American.
Sure.
And I didn't know that at the time, but they were very friendly. They were very warm. There were about, I don't know, 8 people there.
Yeah.
And it was very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Unexpectedly, I'm sure. I'm sure
My
that.
mother tried to set me up with Isabel. She was going to a not Martin Luther. How am I forgetting his name? Oh dear. He had a birthday recently, and he's no longer alive. And it was he was a preacher. I know you know him. I just went
Yeah.
blank on his name.
I'm trying to think here. As far as who had a birthday recently, I have.
Martin Luther King. Thank you.
Oh, it's Martin Luther King. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I
Of
actually
course.
liked. Oh my goodness, I'm going blank. I liked um, Malcolm X better.
Yeah.
I mean, I was more in tune to him.
Sure.
Um, and I definitely believe that he was killed by the government
Oh,
because he was becoming international. And it
absolutely.
was the same with Martin Luther King,
Yeah.
becoming international, and the United States couldn't tolerate that.
The second he came out against the Vietnam War, he got a target on his back.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Um, the second Malcolm X started forming international alliances in Africa, he had a target on his back. Uh,
Right, right,
yeah. Yeah. Fred Hampton too. Um,
right. Oh, I remember that name.
yeah. Yeah. So, what about your father's family? Did you interact much with them?
I don't know if I mentioned that my father was from Guyana.
Yeah.
At that time, it used to be called British Guyana,
Sure.
but it became independent. And all of his family and all of my family on his side were from Guyana.
Mm.
A couple of them were Portuguese um, and from Guyana. And we used to spend every Christmas at their house and celebrate getting gifts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christ didn't have very much to do with it, as far
Sure.
but you know, my family, my father's family could have cared less.
Yeah.
They're very religious, but they knew who my father was.
Sure.
So, um, and Uncle Johnny and Aunt Estelle. Goodness gracious. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, no, that's good. Yeah. Um,
Just looking backwards. The cousins were Audrey and Carmen, and Freddie was Audrey's husband. Uh, Carmen wasn't married at that time, and they were just loving, wonderful people. And I, they took care of me once when my parents were traveling, which they did a lot. And I was there about a week. And Carmen or Audrey told my father that she's so sorry that I'm allergic to everything. And my father got pissed.
Oh my God.
So anyway, I'm sure he didn't say anything to me, which was amazing.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to eat most of the food. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And another activity was going to the airport to meet a Guyanese relative who was coming to live in the United States.
Sure.
And that happened probably about 3 times.
Okay.
And I remember that very clearly. And my father was a Christian in Guyana. And I think he came here when he was 7.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm not sure. And he's very anti-religion, was very anti-religion, as
Sure.
I am today.
Sure.
I believe in spirituality and you choose what you want to choose. But religion, structural religion is dangerous,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's it about my family. I have a sister who's 7 years older than me, and she was very sorry that I was born. She was the only one.
Of course, yeah. My brother is the same way. So, what can you do?
You're right. But anyway, and she also told me she thought that I was the ugliest thing she ever saw in her whole life.
Oh God.
It would be interesting in viewing my sister, interviewing her.
Yeah.
It would be a trip.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it. And you mentioned that your father's family lived in Queens. Is that right? Did most of them live in Queens, or all of them?
Yep. I think all of them lived in Queens except for my cousin Margie,
Okay,
who was one of those people who we met at the plane.
Yeah.
So they were very, very, very loving people.
Sure.
And when I was a kid, I felt very, very bad that I didn't pray and that I didn't go to church. And I never said that to my parents. And I felt that because they were Catholic and they prayed, they were very good people. That's not why they were good people.
Yeah, I'm sure they were good people in spite of the fact that they.
Right.
Yeah. So you mentioned
also Audrey. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just going to say that Audrey, my cousin, and Freddie, her husband, adopted a little girl, Valerie, and that's many, many years ago. I don't know how old she is these days, but we're now in contact.
Oh,
which
wow.
is very nice.
That is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned to me before that when you were a child, you would go to St. Lucy's Grotto sometimes. Was that kind of in the back of your mind, influenced by your father's family, their Catholicism, you think, or just your own thing?
I went there for solace.
Yeah.
And it was on my way. I'm going to let her down.
Oh,
so
sure.
Bye, everybody. Bye. Oy. She's fidgety.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
She'd probably want to come back up eventually.
Probably. Yeah, I discovered it walking to PS 96, where I
Yeah.
was, first public school I went to. And I would go usually after school.
Okay,
I
I
always
see.
went alone. And I just got a lot of solace there,
Sure.
because things were not great in my life.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. And my wife tells me that underneath all my stuff, I'm a Catholic. I love all of the pomp and circumstance and the stuff that they, put in the air.
Oh, that's so funny because Peter told me that I guess he's maybe when he was a child, I think he went to a Catholic mass a few times, and he said that to this day the smell of incense makes him want to throw up.
Incense.
Yeah.
No, that's not it. That's not the word. Anyway,
Frankincense, I guess, or
that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
but I guess Peter hates that smell, which is funny. Because some people really love it. I kind of like it myself. But
Yeah, I like it. And I love all the lit candles. There are thousands of them in the church.
yeah,
And I love the statues, all the reasons that the Protestants got away.
yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
love it.
absolutely. Well, what kind of memories or impressions would you like to share about either or both of your parents?
Um, this is terrible to say. I think I'm not going to say it. My father was uh, mentally very ill.
Mm,
That's a nice way of putting it.
sure, sure.
And he used to torture me and my sister at the dinner table.
Mm,
And by that, I mean, he was just making fun of us. It was horrible.
that's
And
terrible.
I used to leave the table crying,
Yeah.
and I would go into the bathroom, and there were these little black beetles in the Bronx at that time, and
Mm,
in our apartment at that time.
yeah.
And I used to save them. I used to take care of them. I had a bug cemetery in a corner. Um, and they were my friends. They were
Yeah.
definitely my friends. Um, and actually, my sister reminded me of, running to the bathroom
Yeah.
during dinner. Um, what was your question?
Just whatever impressions or memories of your parents that you wanted to share.
Oh, okay. Um, I have to say, I'm going to say some good things about my father.
Sure.
Uh, he was very dramatic.
Mm,
He attracted a lot of attention.
yeah.
I don't even think he graduated high school, but he was very smart. He was
Sure.
very political. He was very active politically.
Yeah.
Um, he knew Paul Robeson, and I got to meet Paul Robeson several times.
Sure.
And at the ALP, the American Liberal Party.
Labor Party.
Oh. The American Labor Party. God forgive me. Uh, and my father had friends in the Coops. They were all white, I think. And they used to sit at our kitchen table. We had a pretty big kitchen. and not as big as Angie's, but it was a good sized kitchen.
Sure.
And they used to pontificate, and always it was said several times, come the revolution, just come the revolution and it's all going to be fine. And one day I asked my father, what does communism mean?
Yeah.
And he said it means good. So anyway, he was a sick man mentally.
Yeah.
And he molested me. And if I told a lie, I had to take my clothes off and he'd beat me with a strap.
Oh, that's terrible.
And it was bad. It was really bad. And I learned recently, I think last year, that I went to Missouri to visit a friend of my sister's. Her name is Eloise, and her mother was Willa, and
Sure.
I was in love with Willa. And in adulthood, when my sister left the Coops, she would have nothing to do with Eloise.
Oh, I see.
Which is too bad.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And as I said, I was in love with Willa. I used to be at her house as an infant, baby, and older. And I thought that she was the most gorgeous woman I ever saw in my whole life.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just loved her so much. And I went to Missouri. They moved to Missouri. I don't remember when, maybe in the late 1960s. And Eloise got her master's, and Willa was from Missouri, and she wanted to leave the Coops, so they did. And Willa now is 104 years old.
Yeah.
So, and then from there, I went to see a friend in Oregon. Is it Oregon? Boulder, no, Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Colorado, where she is. And I spent about 4 days with her, and then I came home. And I forgot what I was, just before I left Boulder, I got a message on my cell phone saying, she died.
Oh, no.
But it wasn't Willa. I thought it was Willa. There was no name there about who died.
Yeah.
But Eloise died.
Yeah.
And it was pretty sudden. And I had just seen her a few days before.
That's so sad.
Horrible. So anyway, I'm glad that I got to see them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And they were a Black family.
Yeah.
And my sister knew that Black people were put on the top floor.
The older generation has that sense. The people I've spoken with, in their late 80s, early 90s. I don't know how old your sister is, but
she's in her 80s.
Yeah, but yeah, it very, very open, never spoken about secret. It seems like, but yeah. So, did your family live on the top floor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Willa and Eloise lived on the top floor.
Yeah.
And my friend James, Sharon James, Black family, they lived on the top floor.
Same with Queen Mother Moore and her family were put on the top floor. She oddly was her given name, but she was eventually given an honorific title in Ghana. But their family.
Who is this?
Queen Mother Moore, Audley Moore.
My sister would know.
Yeah, I'm sure. Her son was Thomas Warner, um, who still older than your sister, but closer to her, much closer to her age. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I think Chuck Turner's family might have been on the top floor.
No, they weren't.
Oh, they weren't. Okay, okay.
Oh, they were on I think on the first floor. Check that
Ah,
out.
oh wow. Angie's family too. I think there's a certain point, maybe they ran out of space on the top floor, but there's a certain point
Possibly.
where the Black families started being placed, on different floors. But I don't think
Right.
that was until at least the 40s. And families that moved in 35, which I think is maybe the earliest when Black families moved in, all
Uh-huh.
of them I think were placed on the top floor.
Right.
Brenda's family too. Um,
Right.
yeah, and she joked and said, little did they know that they were doing us a favor because I didn't catch asthma.
You didn't catch that.
Yeah,
Oh dear.
yeah. Um, but yeah, and you mentioned the American Labor Party. Do you want to talk more about the neighborhood meeting place for that?
Yeah, there was. I don't know. It was a very big space where you could have a lot of people. And I'm sure it was used for other reasons. But there were big, big meetings there with a lot of people.
Yeah,
And this was in the Bronx.
yeah,
Um, and so, one of the meetings, and I was very young, so I
sure,
didn't pay any attention to what anybody
sure,
was saying.
absolutely.
Um, uh, and at one of the meetings, Paul Robeson was there,
Yeah,
and I knew he was famous, and I knew he was important, and I knew he was a singer.
yeah,
And it's very tragic that that man died poor,
I know,
very, very poor,
I know,
sickening.
I know.
Right.
Wasn't allowed to perform in any venues for decades,
Right.
decades.
And he lived in Europe for a long time.
Yeah,
Um, and needless to say, he was treated a lot better.
yeah,
So,
absolutely, absolutely.
anyway, I
Um,
could go on, but I won't.
and what about your mother?
My mother was good friends with Brenda's mother,
Okay,
Betty
okay.
Beatty.
Yeah,
Right. Right. And I really can't, I don't want to say anything else about that.
okay, sure, sure.
I don't want to, yeah, I don't want to say anything else.
Um, what about other impressions or other things you'd like to share about your mother?
um, my mother was my protector, although she didn't know what was going on.
Sure.
But apparently, uh, I was beaten a lot as
Mm,
a baby.
mm,
And so she worked at Children's Center, which was a place for homeless children.
mm.
And it was a very big building. And she worked there for 35 years.
Wow.
And as I said, when I was younger, I could not imagine somebody working for 35 years.
Yeah.
And I was a physician assistant for 37 years. But time just goes by so fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love my work.
Yeah,
One thing about living on the top floor was that our living room windows faced Bronx Park.
sure.
And Bronx Park was one of my favorite places. It was just right across the street. and our address was Bronx Park East. And had a lot of activity there. I was alone a lot, and I was with friends a lot.
Sure.
There was, I was about to talk about Larry Morton. And I know everybody who is being interviewed knows Larry Morton.
Yeah, definitely.
I had a major, major, major crush on him, starting maybe at age 7.
Yeah.
And his entrance to his apartment, he was on the first floor. Oh, you know, his stepfather was Black, and they were on the first floor, and they had a garden apartment.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. They must have moved in after the first wave of
Right.
interracial families. Yeah.
Right. Larry he was not Larry's father. Larry was a jazz musician and very talented. And I have a feeling that he probably knew I was staring out of the window. I just couldn't help it. Oh my God, I was in love with him for years. Even when I went to high school,
Yeah.
I was still in love with him. Anyway, he didn't like me very much, which is really too bad because I was a nice person.
Yeah.
But anyway, what else?
What kinds of things would you all do in Bronx Park?
We would have parties.
Mm-hmm.
We went sleigh riding.
Ah, sure.
Saying my internet, okay. My internet was unstable, but we're fine so far. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
What else? We would go sleigh riding. Did I say that?
Sleigh riding, uh-huh.
Roller skating. Did you hear that?
Yeah, roller skating.
Yeah. And just hung out.
Yeah.
And I was a pretty unhappy kid, and I spent I don't want to talk about it.
Sure.
It's bad.
Sure.
I used to bury my dead pets in the Bronx Park.
Yeah.
My parakeet Zippy. I know exactly where to this day I know where his bones were.
Wow.
I'm sure he's disintegrated now.
Yeah.
But I don't think we buried any dogs there. I don't know what we did with that. Oh, we only had Hookie Duke. We only had one dog that my father pushed on my mother. She did not want a pet. And I was so wanting a pet.
Yeah.
We just brought one home.
Yeah.
And so sick. I just remember when I was a kid, and not that young of a kid, my sister bought me a monkey that I had for years, a toy monkey.
Okay, yeah.
For many years, and she said his name is Vomit. Isn't that horrible? And at the time, I didn't think that was unusual.
Yeah.
It was later when I got older, I said, what was that about?
Yeah. Oh, boy.
So, I went to PS 96 up to the 6th grade. Then
Sure.
I went to junior high school, it was called then. And I went there to 6, 7, and 8. And then I went to Evander Childs High School in the Bronx.
Sure.
And it was the first time I developed Black friends.
Yeah, because I'm
Um,
sure there weren't any other than yourself and maybe one or two others at your elementary and junior high. Is that
oh
right?
yeah, yeah, very few,
Yeah.
very few. And the girls were very mean to me,
Mm.
um, and because I was Black, and we became really good friends. And then I find out um, that I couldn't go to their house anymore. Their
Mm.
grandmother would have a heart attack. Was always the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had a friend. I went to CCNY,
Yeah.
and I had a very close friend whose name I can't remember right now. We loved each other and spent a lot of time together. I met her at City College. Her parents had no problem with me coming to their home. They were Jewish. They didn't live in my neighborhood. And she was my best friend.
Mm.
And a couple of years later, she told me that after we met, she was getting married. And she didn't talk about it at all. She just said to me, I'm getting married.
Huh.
And I said to her, oh my God, he was from another country, I
Yeah.
think in South America or Central America, I don't know. And I said, oh my God, that is going to be fabulous.
Yeah.
And to be there, to have that experience for me will be fabulous. And she said to me, you can't come. This is in college.
Wow.
And I was devastated.
Yeah.
It's sick, so sick.
It is. Yeah.
And I lived with, the white people where I lived were Jewish.
Yeah. For sure.
And I met some ugly Jews.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll never, and I'm not ashamed saying that.
Yeah.
I'm not at all
Yeah.
ashamed.
Definitely.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
I was treated like I was from outer space.
Yeah.
But a dangerous person from outer space.
Wow.
So, and all of my family that's alive is Jewish.
Sure.
And I think that those words, it's the first time that came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And I'm in my 70s. I never said that before.
Yeah.
I've thought it, but I never said it out loud. So I feel good that I did.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was it sounds like that was your experience, not only in your neighborhood and with, your elementary and junior high school, but in many other areas of your life, even after that.
Right.
Um,
Right. Well, I went to the School of American Ballet, George Balanchine School, and you had to, and the school was developed. He just recently came to America from the Soviet Union, and back in those days.
sure.
And you had to audition. I auditioned. I got in, and I started dancing at age 4 in the ALP. That's what my classes were.
Oh, wow.
I just remember that. And I just fell in love with dancing.
Yeah.
Just loved it. So I got into the school, and there was division A, B, and C. You went to each one. If you were really good, you skipped one. And then classes 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 4 was the last number before the company,
Mm.
the American Ballet Theater. Is that what they're called these days? Anyway, I was 8 years old when I auditioned,
Yeah,
and there was a lot of racism there.
sure.
I have to say, though, that there was one dancer with the company at that time, Arthur Mitchell,
Mm.
who was a principal dancer, and he was a Black man.
Yeah,
And Balanchine did not, as far as I could tell, he did not have the crap that Americans live in.
sure. Sure.
And he died recently, I think. And he eventually, when I was an adult, he opened up the Dance Theater of Harlem, and he had a school there. And I could have gone, I know I'm going off.
Oh, no, no.
I could have gone to performing arts.
Sure.
And if you went to the School of American Ballet, you didn't have to audition.
Okay, yeah. Automatic acceptance, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And my father wouldn't let me go.
Mm.
He wanted me to meet Black people. So I'll drink to that. But I was very upset that I couldn't go.
I'm sure.
He was a bastard.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it. It sounds like the appropriate term.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
I'm not saying much, I gotta tell you. It's
Yeah,
a whole
yeah,
lot
yeah.
more. It's too
Sure.
ugly.
Sure, absolutely. Do you want to talk about particular people that were at the School of American Ballet?
Yeah, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I ended up in class 4 as a young teenager. I also wanted to say that I was in the Nutcracker Suite
Oh,
at
wow, okay.
City Center. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And you know what went there? What went there and took the school away?
Who's that?
Oh, geez. It was a food store.
Hmm.
And I think it happened, oh God, it breaks my heart to think of it. Yeah, the school was gone. In the 1980s, I think, maybe late 1970s.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what replaced it. Something totally insignificant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the people, there were members of the company who would take class with us.
Mm.
And Maria Tolchief was the prima ballerina of the company then.
Mm.
And she was one of Balanchine's wives. He had a number of them, all from the company. I think.
Yeah.
Melissa Hayden was a principal dancer. She was fabulous. She had a very awkward body and not a typical dancer's body.
Mm.
But she was a powerhouse. She was just amazing. Who else? Janet Reed was a principal dancer. I'm forgetting some of the names. There was a woman named Tanaquil Leclerc.
Mm.
She was in the company. She was an exquisite dancer. And she was, when she was Balanchine's wife also at different times.
Oh.
And one of my chickens is running around. Excuse me, we call her Carilla DeVille because she's Black with a white fluffy crown.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, God, I wish I could bring her in. Anyway,
I'd love to see her, yeah.
yeah, she's beautiful. And they follow me. We have 8 chickens. We had 20.
Wow.
They get killed by the wildlife here.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I live in the Hudson Valley. Did you know that?
I knew you lived somewhere upstate,
Yeah.
yeah, didn't know exactly where.
Yeah. So Balanchine and the company left and went to Europe on a tour. And Tanaquil Leclerc was with them. And she was, breaks my heart. She contracted polio.
Oh, no.
In Europe. And she never walked again.
Wow.
She never danced again.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was really, really horrible. And, you know, she made a career for herself in a wheelchair teaching ballet. But she never danced again. So, you know, what people go through, I feel real gratitude.
Yeah.
That the life that I've had.
Yeah, yeah. And how long were you at the School of American Ballet?
8 years.
8 years. Okay, yeah, you said that. That's right.
Yeah.
And did you continue professional dancing after the School of American Ballet?
Well, I don't call myself a professional because I wasn't part of the company. And I danced in class.
Sure.
And my life is, I did auditions for various things. And I would freeze.
Yeah.
And the steps were, you know, the combinations were combinations I knew.
Yeah.
And I could do them beautifully, but I just froze. And
Sure.
I think that that's because of my father.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
He was very, very involved with my dancing.
So he kind of poisoned the whole thing for
He
you.
did. He definitely did. And when I was in the Nutcracker Suite, I said, why don't you come and see me? And he said, no, because I would get too excited. So anyway, that's one thing. That's it. No more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what else? I went to the Alvin Ailey Company. And Alvin Ailey was alive then. And it was in the 1960s. And I loved that school.
Yeah.
Alvin Ailey was black. And actually, all of the teachers were black.
Wow.
And the company was black.
Yeah.
And he used the Horton technique is what he taught us, what his teachers taught us. And it was just, it was my life.
Yeah.
It absolutely was my life. And before that, when I graduated high school, my mother took me to Europe and to the Soviet Union for a high school graduation present.
Yeah.
And I danced. We were in Sochi, which is a vacation place.
Sure.
I danced, what would you call it? The name is it was outside.
Yeah.
And it was a place where people sat on benches, and there was a band in the middle, and I got up and danced.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was really great. And then men would come up to me and they would want to dance with me. And it was great. It was just great. And I know I looked good.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I know I did.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I told you this, but anyway, my mother, I had gained a lot of weight.
Mm.
And when I gained a lot of weight, my father made me quit the school. I just remembered that.
Oh, I see.
And we were in Europe a long time, and we were in the Soviet Union a long time.
Yeah.
And we went to Denmark, was one of the places. We went to a lot of places.
Yeah.
And in Denmark, there's Tivoli, which is the amusement, it's a park, and it's an amusement park. Very pretty. And I left my mother. Did I tell you this?
Yeah, yeah. Well, great's not the right word, but it's a very telling story.
Oh God. Anyway, and this country is much, 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 much worse.
Yeah.
Than when I was growing up.
Sure.
Actually worse than Denmark.
Yeah.
But in any case, I had a friend there, Lefty, who was a very dark Black man. He moved there, he married a Danish woman. They had 2 kids, and their kids definitely faced intense bigotry.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Lefty did. I mean, he was Black.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a diversion, sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. Do you want to tell the story of your experience at the cafe? Yeah.
So I left my mother and just walked around, and I met this guy. He was from Ireland, and I don't think he lived there, but maybe he did. I don't think he did though. And we stopped at a cafe in the park, and I had coffee and maybe a dessert. I don't remember. He paid for it. You'll see why you know the story, but
yeah.
He paid for it. I know he was sorry. Anyway, we're talking and talking and talking about different stuff. And I'm 17, by the way, with this chick.
Yeah.
And we were talking, I don't know what we were talking about, but we might have been talking about, at some point, different nationalities, different people of different colors, different religions. And he said to me, I can't stand, he didn't use the word niggers because they probably didn't use it there. Maybe, I don't remember what he called us. And I looked at him and I said, I'm Black. He was shocked. He was so fucking shocked.
What a schmuck.
And I mean, well, anyway, he got up and left, immediately got up and left.
Yeah. Good riddance.
It was amazing. And a lot of people in Europe thought that I was white. And even in the Soviet Union, they would say to me I was white. I'm not white. Yeah. And they wouldn't take that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And, I'm trying to remember. I was thinking about the Soviet Union. Anyway, we went to the Soviet Union illegally because you couldn't get a, what do you call it?
Visa.
Visa? No, not, is it a visa?
Yeah. I think.
And we went somewhere to get a visa, and we took a boat to the Soviet Union, and we were on the boat, I think, 4 days. And the whole boat was filled with young Soviets.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I met people from the Soviet Union.
Sure.
And a lot of them were my age. And they kept giving me gifts, you know, pencils and pads, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to live there.
Yeah.
Really, really, I mean, it's not what it used to be, but
Yeah. 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 Sure.
I really wanted to live there, and I was so happy. And I said, I don't have to hide the word communist there,
Yeah.
which was like amazing to me.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, excuse me, sorry.
Oh, no, no, that's fine. And
Go
you
ahead.
you've talked a little bit about being Black in the Soviet Union, but do you have any other either stories or impressions you want to share about along those lines?
Uh, Taking place anywhere?
Anywhere in the Soviet Union, yeah, just
Oh, I got
yeah,
some good stories here.
yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll come back to that for sure. Yeah,
Um, and anyway, uh, I didn't have any other instances like that.
yeah,
Um, you know, people not accepting that I was Black. They would say
sure.
it's just not possible.
Yeah.
But in any case, and I still deal with that today,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
and I hate it.
yeah.
Um,
I'm sure.
and I will give you a story, not in the Soviet Union. I worked at Kings County Hospital
Mm,
in Brooklyn and Downstate Medical Center, where I ran a trial. And I parked my car uh, and walked up a hill. It was kind of like a shortcut.
yeah.
And on the top of the hill, these boys, Black boys, surrounded me and uh, started chanting, Howard Beach, Howard Beach, Howard Beach. Do you know about that?
I don't think
That
so.
a Black man was killed in Howard Beach.
Oh.
Um,
Mm.
and I looked at them and I said, I got some information for you. Not all Black people look alike. And I'm Black.
Yeah.
So get the fuck out of here. And they
Yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah,
They
for
did.
sure. How
And
did they react to that?
I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a big nose. I got big, well, my lips used to be bigger. But I mean, I see a Black person in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, people from the West Indies always know I'm Black,
Mm,
always,
yeah,
because they've got a lot of light people there.
yeah,
And they're accustomed to seeing like light Black people.
sure.
In this country, another instance, I'll tell you another story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When I worked at Woodstock Family Health,
Mm,
I was there, I think, for about 8 years, and I loved it. And I had a patient who was very poor, and she had 3 boys who I took care of medically. And one day she came into the office and she said, you know, that man was a nigger.
mm,
And I said, you know what? Nobody says that in my office.
yeah,
And I have some information from you. This Black woman has been treating you for years.
yeah.
She never came back.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
we got along really well. And I loved her sons.
Yeah,
They were great. But this is what they were being taught.
yeah. Oh my God.
So she was gone. I'm sure I told people that story at the clinic.
Yeah,
And I also remember seeing at the clinic, they didn't have trans people at that time, or
sure.
if they did, it was not at all publicized. I don't really know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And guys would come in dressed as women. They had breasts. And I had to teach the staff how to treat them.
Sure.
Um, it was pretty sad, but they listened to me.
I'm
Thank
glad they
God.
listened to you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was another doctor there. Whenever an addict came in,
Yeah.
he'd send that addict to me
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah.
because he did not know how to handle an addict.
Yeah.
And I got along with them.
Yeah.
Um, and I've worked in addiction medicine also. I've worked in a lot of places.
Mm.
So anyway,
We'll yeah, actually, let's stay with your work at the hospital for now. I was gonna say let's go back to some aspects of your experience in the public schools, but let's stay with the hospital. So we're I'm sure that you were working at the worst of the kind of AIDS epidemic in
oh God.
I'm sure
Oh,
that was very, very hard to.
oh, it was beyond horrible.
Yeah.
And in the 1980s, I worked at a drug clinic,
Mm.
and then I transferred to Downstate Medical Center.
Okay.
But I worked with addicts, and one guy came to me crying. It upsets me just talking about it. Sorry.
No, no, that's fine.
He, his parents, we didn't know anything. We didn't know HIV.
Yeah, for sure.
We knew a pneumonia that was killing people. That's all
Yeah.
we knew. And he said, and that only gay men got it.
Mm.
That's not really true.
Yeah,
But
yeah, definitely.
gay people were initially the first to be affected by it,
Yeah,
and particularly gay men.
yeah.
And he was in my office crying, and he said his family would not believe that he was not gay.
Mm.
And he wasn't.
Yeah.
And he was beyond devastation. And I don't think they would have anything to do with him.
Wow.
It was horrendous.
Wow.
I remember taking the train to Downstate Medical Center and Kingston State Hospital.
Mm.
Did I say that correctly? Kingston Hospital. I don't know. Anyway, I would read material about HIV,
Yeah.
and at that point that I'm talking about now, we did know what was causing all these deaths and symptoms.
Yeah.
And I would do a lot of reading on the subway.
Sure.
People would look at what I was reading. They would walk far away from me.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It was horrible.
Wow.
And every single patient that I had died.
Oh my God.
Every single one. There was no treatment.
Yeah. A death
Um,
sentence.
there was nothing to increase their lives, the length of their lives. And young people, and they weren't addicts. They weren't gay.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Um, and I got very, 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 very depressed.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
And I
sure.
worked with them for 11 years.
Wow.
And after that, I moved to New York City.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I imagine that
Yeah.
that you were pretty burned out after
Yeah.
that, huh?
Yeah.
And during all of this, I remember you mentioned you were pretty involved in ACT UP.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's probably the only thing that you felt you could do, I mean,
Right.
you
You know,
can't treat people medically. And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh, no, 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 you go ahead. I was just going to say, if you feel so helpless in the situation and you feel like you have to do something, I'm sure. And yeah.
Yeah, and what the fight was that the FDA um, at, insisted, and I don't know if it was only the FDA, insisted that drug testing go through the normal screening process. And
Mm,
we were saying, no, we can't wait for that.
yeah,
We really can't wait for that. And that's what a lot of our marches were about,
sure.
and a lot of other stuff too. But
Yeah.
and it's interesting because oh, shoot, what's his name? The guy from the CDC now, who's pretty much in charge of everything.
Uh, Fauci.
Fauci.
Yeah, yeah,
Very good.
yeah.
um, he was very involved with ACTA.
Oh, okay. I didn't
Um,
realize that. I don't know a whole lot about
yeah, I mean, he didn't join it, but he really, really understood what people were saying.
it. Wow. Yeah.
And there was a woman, I can't remember what her name, who was also a doctor, fully understood what we were saying.
Sure.
Um, just a second, I gotta get a tissue.
Oh, sure.
Sorry, camera. Did you see my nose was big? Anyway, and they're doing the same thing now
Yeah.
with COVID.
Yeah.
It's no big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, pharmaceutical companies just went at it
Yeah. Absolutely.
and making a whole lot of money.
Hmm.
And did you get your shots?
I did. Yeah. Just recently.
Oh, for a minute. I didn't mean your shots, your vaccines.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. That's what
Okay,
I thought you meant.
we'd have to go on to that if you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, times have changed, and the gay community in Manhattan was just swept out of existence.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
the Gay Pride March is for straight people. There were no straight people in that march. It was a great, great march.
Yeah.
And it's very different.
Yeah. 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 And aside from ACT UP and that kind of activism that you've already spoken of, what kinds of activism did you engage in when you were younger?
Well, the only thing that I could remember is going to the Yankee Stadium with my father, um, picketing the Yankees because they were
Sure.
the blacks.
Sure.
And so I always hated the Yankees, even
Yeah.
today. What can I tell you?
Uh,
We also every year look forward to going to the Labor Day parade in
mm,
Manhattan,
sure.
and it was jam packed,
Yeah.
and it was something that you could do then,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and Biden is very pro-union,
Yeah.
and maybe one day we'll see that, but nah, we'll get killed. I mean, it's horrendous in this country.
It is. It is.
Horrendous. And my daughter and I were talking a couple of nights ago that she's leaving the country. She
Okay.
does,
Yeah.
and we've been talking about that a lot, but she is leaving.
Wow.
And they're going to Costa Rica.
Mm,
And she's looking at international schools for her daughter.
Yeah.
And she lived in Costa Rica for 2 years when Lola was a baby. My granddaughter was a baby.
Oh, I see. I see.
And we had a house, and it was designed by a friend of ours. And it was, so many Americans got screwed
Mm,
by the Costa Ricans that had horrible houses built. This house was a strong, good house.
mm,
And I had no interest in living in luxury.
yeah.
And I didn't want to stand out like that. Plus, I wouldn't like other. Anyway, see, that's my upbringing.
Yeah.
um, anyway, I sold the house 2 years ago,
Oh, okay. I see. I see.
which is really, really sad.
Yeah.
But I was only living on Social Security, and I
Yeah.
needed some help. And the people got my house for a steal.
Wow.
11 acres. Part of the 11 acres was a valley that went, into a jungle.
Wow.
It was gorgeous, and I had a lot of property. And when my daughter lived there, she had somebody build a little house, kind of a distance from my house.
Sure.
So they got 2 houses.
Wow.
You don't want to know what I got for it. And I'm not going to say it because anyway.
Yeah.
And then my daughter would have a place to stay if I didn't sell my house.
Sure.
So, and Shoni has a boyfriend. That's my daughter's name, Shoni.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Shoshone, but we call her Shoni. And she has a boyfriend. They've gotten very attached very quickly.
Mm,
And I think they're in love.
yeah.
Yeah. She met him online, and
Okay.
they've been together a week. But what can I tell you? They're both very happy.
But hey, she's smart getting out of this country while she can.
Yeah. Well, he's white,
Mhm.
and he has a what is it? Bed B&B. What is it called?
Uh,
Starts with an A.
oh, is it Airbnb?
Well, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
Airbnb.
Yeah.
I guess, that's what it's called. Jesus. It's kind of deteriorating up there a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He has an Airbnb in Harlem,
Mm.
and they went out to dinner in Harlem just a few days ago. And a man came up to them, and they said, "Get the fuck out of my neighborhood." And Harlem, and it breaks my heart, is going to turn white.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And people are pissed.
Yeah.
And he also and he also said, "I'll pull out my gun in a minute." And
Wow.
he didn't, he left.
Yeah.
And the guy said to him, "You better be the fuck out of here when I come back."
Yeah. Wow.
And they stayed.
Yeah.
And he's been harassed on the street. And Shoni was in shock, and he didn't understand why she was not giving him a little bit more a reaction of sadness, or she didn't believe it was happening.
Yeah.
And you used to be able to walk through Harlem as a white person.
Yeah.
And she said, they will threaten you because you're too light. They are threatening her because she's too light.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
And she won't, her daughter, Lola, has a Latino father.
Mm,
My daughter is darker than me. She obviously looks black,
yeah,
but it's too light. They don't like it. And I understand the anger. I
sure.
absolutely understand the anger.
Yeah, me too.
Um, but this is my family.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's all of the real estate companies buying up property and all of that. It's
Right.
not, but it's easy. I can understand why people just lash out at, you know, the first person that they might see, but it's definitely a little misdirected because it's the people who own or buying up property probably never even come to Harlem. They
Right.
probably have their headquarters in Brooklyn. The
And
people who own
go
my
ahead. No,
neighborhood,
go ahead.
yeah, the people who own my neighborhood, some of the large management companies, their address is in Brooklyn. I live up in the Bronx, it's like
Uh-huh.
they're
Uh-huh.
buying it up. But I understand the anger for sure.
Yeah.
But
And the people who are moving in, it's cheaper rent
yeah,
and they can't afford the rent and they're not looking beyond that.
yeah, for sure.
And I find that very disturbing. And
Yeah,
the first time I realized it was happening, I was on Amtrak or Metro North going to Manhattan, and all these white people on the train got off at 125th. I said, what the fuck is going on here? I was shocked.
yeah,
I haven't been in the city for a very long time.
yeah, for sure.
Um, and my sister, I think it was in the late 1970s, worked for a law firm, and their goal was to prevent white people from moving into Harlem and taking it over.
Sure.
Didn't work, whatever they were doing.
No, no, no.
So anyway,
Did you spend much time in Harlem when you were growing up, or when you lived in New York later on?
years as a pay assistant. Um, you just got frozen.
Oh,
Can you
okay.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah. It's just for a second, I think.
Okay, you heard that I was a PA there for
Yeah,
3 years. Um, and I went to Arthur Mitchell School,
sure.
Dance
Yeah,
Theater of Harlem. Um, and I think I would go shopping because my apartment, and when my daughter was a little girl, was on 122nd Street.
mm,
So I did a lot of shopping in Harlem.
sure.
Um, and people were not bothering you.
Yeah,
This is apparently new. I mean, it's happened before, but
yeah, yeah,
things are so horrendous.
yeah, definitely.
Uh, anyway,
Um, well, yeah. Do you mind if we go back to your public school experience for a little bit?
we got to talk about color again, huh?
If you want. I mean, I guess it's hard not to with your public school experience, but so yeah, at your elementary and junior high school, you mentioned the students already. What about some of the teachers? What were your impressions of them, and how did they treat you as one
The
of the
teachers were fine, I
okay.
think. I mean, I went into the first grade. How old am I? You know, how
Oh,
old am I? Five,
oh,
six?
yeah, 5, 6, something like that. Yeah.
Excuse me, sorry.
Hmm.
Um, the teachers were fine. The students were disgusting.
Yeah.
And the students, the kids in PS 96 when I was there were mostly Italian.
Mm,
And I remember there was one girl Her last name was Halpern, Halpern,
Okay. Yeah.
and I don't think she was Jewish.
Hmm.
I don't. I'm remembering her as an Italian, but
Yeah.
we were best friends, and her name was Joyce, and her sister was named Amy. Isn't that amazing?
Hmm.
The things you remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Um, and we became blood sisters.
Hmm.
Which do you know what that was then?
I don't think
You
so. Oh, you prick your finger and.
yeah, more than a prick,
Oh, okay. Okay.
a little bigger than, and you exchange blood.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sure. Yeah.
Um, we were blood sisters, and she was having a party, and I couldn't go.
Hmm.
Couldn't go. Parents wouldn't let it, and that kind of ended our friendship.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah. Um.
Um, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
It also happened at the School of American Ballet.
Oh,
Did
okay.
I mention that? Yeah,
Not
that
not
happened.
not this particular incident. No. Um.
Uh, no, well, they would have parties, and I was never invited
Oh.
at the School of American Ballet. And I
Yeah.
could hear them whispering, don't let Alice know.
Wow.
Um, and I was hurt,
Absolutely.
but it happened so many times.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that I was born in 1944. In the 1950s, and in the early 19, no, well, at, and in the 1960s, maybe halfway through,
Sure.
nobody thought I was white.
Mm.
And I think everybody, it's so weird. Everybody thought I was Black,
Yeah.
which I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons is at that time, there were very few, definitely in the 1950s, very few interracial couples.
Yeah.
There were very few biracial kids.
Sure.
And I mean, that's what I've said to myself. I mean, I don't know why, other than those reasons.
Yeah.
Um, there weren't, and it's interesting because young white people say, my daughter told me this, that they love the olive skin, the
Mm.
color of the olive skin.
Mm.
And they're a little jealous. And there are a lot of white people who have that kind of skin.
Yeah.
But there are also Black people who have that kind of skin. I don't have it, unfortunately. But anyway.